Hey everyone, and welcome back to a special edition of Market Like a Mother. This is my on-brand mini-series that I'm doing. I am your solo host, Lauren Karwoski, radio marketing's content strategist. And in this little mini-series, you guys know we are diving into behind the scenes of the NBC show On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, which I was on. I took some time stepping away from my role at Radiant to film the show, and I'm kind of giving the behind the scenes now and some takeaways and kind of details into what you didn't see on the show. And again, if you haven't watched it, I recommend going to check it out first. It is streaming on Peacock. So today we're going to get into what you didn't see, the real pitch process behind the scenes. So to give like a very, very quick overview for those of you who haven't watched the show, it is kind of similar to like a modern day Apprentice, where Jimmy Fallon hired us all. The entire cast was people that are marketers in their own right, like a lot of different backgrounds of people who all kind of loosely are in the marketing world. And every week we would have a different brand come in, and these were, big brands. I'm talking Dunkin, Southwest Airlines, Therabody, Sonic. So lots of these big brands, and they would give us a marketing campaign task every week. So it would be something like, invent the new drink for Sonic and a jingle to go with it and a full scale marketing campaign. Or Southwest is rolling out new legroom. How would you present this? We're going to wrap a plane and, present your full marketing idea. So these challenges usually centered around one main aspect of the campaign, and then kind of all of the marketing comprehensive that goes along with it. So kind of, I think a lot of the criticism that the show received is that they didn't show a lot of the actual, like, us working on the marketing. And again, you have to keep in mind, these were 60-minute episodes. No one wants to see us sitting in a room in silence, writing with pen and paper, brainstorming. So obviously you saw like a fifth of what it went into it behind the scenes. So I kind of wanted to share like what was actually given to us and kind of what we worked on, because it's very different than what you saw on screen. For this specific topic, I'm going to use the first episode as an example, which was Dunkin' Donuts. So Dunkin' Donuts came in and they wanted to release a limited edition merchandise item and kind of have a full scale campaign theme, that goes along with this marketing item. So what we were given by the brands was actually really, really cool. And, I had access to these materials that I probably would have never had from these massive brands before, which is actually really cool. We got access to, big documents of like analytics of, their consumer data of, especially like from like a legal standpoint, like what's allowed, what's not, like what are their brand ethos and values, what do they, what's their color palette, what's their exact branding portfolio look like. So it was really cool because it was such a reminder to me of like, obviously Radiant Marketing is a small marketing agency, but I was like, we're doing the same thing. Like I was so excited. Like I was like, the way that they put together this brand's ethos and branding packages, I'm like, we do that at Radiant too. So it was really cool to see kind of that like universal marketing language of, no matter how big or small the brand is, a lot of these core fundamental things like the same. So we did have a lot to work with. We weren't just coming in blind, especially if you weren't familiar with the brand that was on that specific episode. So that was really cool to actually, we got those before filming. So, we were working on these ideas for quite a while. Again, on the show didn't make it look overnight, but like anyone knows, good marketing doesn't happen overnight. So we needed some time to work on our ideas. So, we were studying these brand guidelines that we were given, their consumer data, you were able to kind of do your own independent research. What has Dunkin' done in the past? Like what worked, what didn't, what did people like, what did people to respond to? And for this particular episode, I got lucky because I am a born and raised New Englander. So Dunkin' Donuts is literally my life. Like I love Dunkin' Donuts. I was so excited when they announced that this was going to be one of the brands because I'm like, I am a consumer. Like I'm part of that demographic. Like I grew up on Dunkin' Donuts. I live and eat and breathe the brand. So I was like, for me, this feels natural. So I was like, I definitely feel like I didn't even need to look through as much of the consumer data and stuff like that. So I was like, I am the consumer. I felt like I knew a lot. We had still quite limited time, maybe like a week to work on these before we had to submit them, obviously, to legal for approval first. We needed to have our ideas kind of checked and safeguarded before they made it to air to make sure that we were, still following all legal guidelines and, presenting the brand and talking about it in a way on national television in which they would want it to be. And then you had a very short amount of time to get your pitch together. So once your idea was, you kind of got the check off on it. They wouldn't tell you if it was good or bad, by the way. Your kind of checkpoint for your idea that you were coming up with for this marketing campaign was just like, is it allowed or not? So there is no feedback. I would try to, pick up on the lines of like, do you like it though? And they were super just like, yes or no, works from a legality standpoint or not. So, once our ideas were approved, we had like a day, 2 days maybe before then we would start filming that episode to write out our entire pitch. We had 5 minutes to do our pitch, had to have it memorized, and you got one take. Like the cameras are rolling, you get up there and you have one take to do your pitch. And again, if you're not familiar with the show, basically we had a pitch battle room on set, which was a like amphitheater style where all the cast members would sit. The CEO, CMO of these brands would sit, and then Jimmy Fallon and Bose, the host of the show, would sit as well. You'd get 2 slides behind you on screen that you worked with the graphic designers of the show to design to help convey your pitch. Just 2 slides, no graphics, no animations, no videos, just solid slides. And then 5 minutes of time to do your pitch. And again, if you messed up, if you forgot stuff, you one and done. Which I definitely had a few moments throughout the show where I stumbled. But I guess like the lucky part for me is I was a theater kid. So I was like memorizing lines, like memorizing the pitch. That actually wasn't really scary to me. So I was like, I'm really good at memorizing stuff and getting my lines. I just put myself in like theater kid mode. But it was a ton of pressure. I mean, it's one thing to pitch to a boardroom of people, but then to put yourself in front of a crew of like 8 cameras in your face, bright studio lights. I mean, there was probably 30 plus crew around at any given time. And then knowing that it's on national television. So if you mess up, it's not just like, oh man, this CMO of this brand, I kind of stumbled my words in front of them. It's like, oh no, you stumbled your words in front of America. So that added a whole additional level of pressure in addition to it still being fast paced. So again, although we had a lot of time behind the scenes, like much more than what you were shown, it was still very fast paced. Again, if you think of this marketing campaign in the real world, so again, Dunkin, for example, wanting to do this limited edition merch item, wanting to do this full scale emotional campaign around it, that would be months, not, a week of doing your idea, getting it approved by corporate. And then like, hey, you're out there pitching your idea 7 days later. That's not how it works. So that was a ton of pressure. And I think too, I learned right off the bat within the first few episodes, how important those 5 minutes were to pitch, which added even more pressure. And it's like, you have 5 minutes to word vomit out every stat that you could memorize and why this is going to work and why your idea is the best and convince them that your idea works. And a big takeaway I learned that I wanted to dive into a little bit today too, is the difference between like a creative idea and a sellable idea. Because I think my first few episodes of the show, I was so focused on being the most creative and having the most innovative idea and something so different and so entertaining, which is great. And that is like the basis of the show. But a lot of my ideas, I felt like at the beginning weren't sellable. Like I wasn't explaining to the brands like how this works long term, how this fits into the brand kind of history long term. When we look back on this campaign in 10 years, like does this fit into the brand's identity or is this like a random blip, on the radar? So I really had to start thinking into like how sellable is my idea? Like how could this idea be repurposed long term? How could this campaign live on, long after the specific merch item that we're designing is sold out? And that was something I learned really like firsthand going in, having it be that fast paced, that I think I carried back to me a lot with reading it. I think sometimes I could get excited about a marketing campaign and my idea, and I don't always think about it in the long term. And I feel like that's something I really learned on the show is like, you could be so excited about this idea and executing it, but it's like when this is done, when this campaign is done, now what? You know what I mean? Like, could this idea be used in the future? Could this be a reoccurring theme in your brand and your marketing? A sellable idea is really something that lives on and is almost evergreen in a way to the brand and its ethos and its, its core identity. So that was something really cool that I felt like I got to take away from it. I guess too, just like to recap kind of what this was like, it was obviously not as fast as people saw on the show. That was like a big thing I wanted to stress is like, I feel like there was some negative backlash of people who work in marketing being like, how did they come up with these campaigns overnight? It wasn't overnight. but it also wasn't months in the making. So I'm also like, if you saw that idea, give us a break. Because like, we've stopped filming one episode. You would pour your entire heart and soul into this one idea that you had, and then you'd wake up the next morning and get your new brand and have to do it all again. So again, even just that mental load of the fast turnaround and switching. Think of, when you work at a marketing agency, you're working with these clients long term often. So it's like your brain's already, the client, you're tapped in, you kind of know it's easy for you to maybe switch back and forth between clients because you know them so well. This was like, hey, give your all to this client, learn everything about this client, make the best possible pitch ever, and then wake up the next morning and it's like, new client, that one doesn't exist anymore. You're not thinking about that anymore. So even just like the mental load of a fast turnaround, it was a very fast-paced show. And that was kind of, again, just a little deep dive into what it looked like behind the scenes and how much time we actually had. Really such a cool experience. And again, I do feel like now at Radiant and even just in my own personal, social media realm and my Sweet Life of Lauren brand that I'm running, I think so long-term. And I think that was like a really great takeaway to have from that. So thanks for listening. Next week in our next episode, I'm going to dive into a little bit more of the specific Marshall's episode, which was the episode that they ended up choosing my idea for and kind of diving into what that looked like. And just keeping this on-brand mini-series going. So thank you guys so much for listening. We have a video version on YouTube that you could watch and see me sitting here with my microphone. Or as always, you could stream on Apple or on Spotify. Check out the Radiant Marketing website if you want to learn more about Radiant. We have a blog. I write lots of fun blog posts on there. And until next time, stay radiant.